Welcome back, my friends, to the D-Rate the Hate podcast. I am your host, Wilk Wilkinson, your blue-collar sage, calming outrage and helping to navigate a world divided by fog and those who would spread that fear, outrage, and grievance. Each week, I'm sharing stories from my path and using the power of conversation and collaboration with my many great guests. Together, we chart a course toward understanding, bridging divides, and fostering a community where wisdom prevails over discord. Friends, it really is about bettering the world one attitude at a time. We did not create the hate, but together we can derate the hate. The only good thing about a bad attitude is we have the ability as individuals to change it. For me, it starts with gratitude and personal accountability. I am so incredibly grateful that you have taken the time to join me for another powerful DTH episode. Please remember to subscribe and share the DTH podcast with your network of friends. If you would like to support the show, check out the Support Us page on the D-Rate the Hate website. With that, my friends, let's get to it. Today I'm sitting down with Robert J. Hunt, also known as the Accountability Guy. Robert is a business owner, executive coach, and co-author of the book Nobody Cares Until You Do. He's been running CEO groups in the Dallas-Fort Worth area since 2013, and let me tell you, this guy knows a thing or two about what it takes to lead with intention and accountability. Look, we all know the word accountability can stir up all kinds of reactions, right? But Robert's got a refreshing take on it that's all about personal power, freedom, and joy. He's not talking about someone else holding your hand and checking off the things on your what to-do list. No, it's about you holding yourself accountable. That's where real growth happens. We'll be diving deep into how taking ownership of your life, your choices, and yes, even your mistakes can actually unlock new levels of freedom and happiness. Robert's philosophy really resonates with me because it's about transparency and vulnerability. It's about being honest with yourself and owning your actions, something that's easier said than done, especially in a world where it's so tempting to fall into that victim mentality that you've heard me talk about so many times. But Robert believes, and I wholeheartedly agree, that shedding that mentality is the first step towards real personal growth. So if you're ready to learn how to take your own power back, my friends, step into freedom and find joy by embracing accountability, stick around. This episode's got a lot to offer. Let's get into it with Robert J. Hunt. Here we go. Robert Hunt, thank you for joining me on the D-Rate the Hate podcast. Man, it is so good to see you. Very grateful for your time today.
Hey, it's fun. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, Robert, when I saw something you had written, it was a statement that stood out to me, and it says, nobody can hold anybody accountable. You can only hold yourself accountable. If you want to, true accountability is power, freedom, and joy. That's why we wrote the book on accountability. And I do want to get into talking about your book a little bit, Robert. But first, let's just start there with that statement, because it's a very profound statement. It's something that I've talked about so many times on the D-Rate the Hate podcast, but nobody can hold anybody accountable. We are the ones that have to hold ourselves accountable before any other thing. So let's start there, Robert. Tell me how you came to believe that statement, or how you came to write that statement.
I think the simplest version of that is all throughout my life, I've been a part of things that were identified as accountability groups. And whether it was the guys group at my church or it was business people that I was spending time with, there's all kinds of things that are created with the idea that somehow by you being there, you're going to be accountable. But the reality is that by you showing up doesn't make you accountable. It's the idea that you're willing to be transparent and vulnerable that allows you to have the opportunity to be accountable. And if you look to someone else to help hold you accountable, as we say, hey, hold me accountable. I'm going to work out every day. I'm going to speak nicely to my wife from now on. I'm going to not work as many hours. Pick your topic. You dump it on someone else and they go, well, you do it for me. Like they're going to somehow magically make you behave. Even AA, which is probably the most famous place of accountability,
Sure.
it doesn't work unless you want it to work.
Hmm.
Because you could show up at the meetings and lie. Oh yeah, I haven't had anything to drink. Pick your place of accountability. The saddest place I see it is where the CEOs who have been in our groups over the years, I lead peer groups for CEOs here in DFW, they didn't want to look bad in front of their peers. So they wouldn't say, I'm really struggling with cash flow right now. I've had a couple of clients who didn't pay me on time and were really struggling. They didn't want to look like there was a problem. So instead of reaching out and being honest and having everyone go, well, here's what I did when I had that, and here's a way to work that out, getting help, you try to look good and then you don't get help. So true accountability requires vulnerability. It can't be done by anyone else. It's all on you. And the idea of accountability is not punitive. It's a good thing. In accountability, there's freedom, there's power, there's joy, because when I don't have accountability, I feel like a victim. Everything's against me. Everything happens to me. I have no power. I have no choice. It's just I'm getting screwed all the time. And that victim mindset just makes me miserable in life. But when I decide to take accountability for everything in my life, I all of a sudden have the opportunity to change anything in my life. And we saw that happen in our own story. And that's why we had to write the book, because we wanted people to understand you don't have to be a victim. You have the opportunity to own it and do something about it.
No, that's absolutely right, man. And so beautifully stated. I've talked a lot on this podcast, Robert, about the perpetual victim mentality and how it is just this perpetual cycle, right? If we do not hold ourselves accountable, it becomes this thing where we become incapable of seeing that we are the ones that are often making the decisions or performing the bad actions or doing the things that continue to lead to these problems that we have over and over and over again. But that releasing that vulnerability, and I love talking about vulnerability, because so often we find ourselves just being completely afraid of the idea that if we stand up and admit that we did something wrong, or we veered left when we should have gone right, or whatever the case may be, we find ourselves, we don't learn from our mistakes. We don't correct our actions. We don't course correct when course correction is needed. And I think that is a huge problem in society today, is instead of pointing the finger at ourselves and saying, what have I done that may have contributed to the position that I find myself in now? We're looking to point fingers at somebody else and talk about how bad we've been treated.
Yeah, I don't think people want to be a victim. I don't think people go, yeah, I'd like to be a victim. But I think they're used to it for so many years of their life. And it starts when you're a kid and your parents say, who knocked this over? And you go, he did it. I mean, it's the first thing we do, right? We just blame our brother or sister. And it has become such a comfortable thing in life. When you're late, you make an excuse. Oh, traffic was really bad. Oh, my kid was sick. I didn't get a chance to get that done. All the things that go on in life. And everyone goes, oh, okay. And they support your wanting to play that role, and it never frees you up. But what you're doing is you're keeping yourself as a victim. You're staying trapped. You don't even know to change it because you don't think you can, or you should, because it's not your fault. And so the longer that we kind of swim in this blame, accusation, say you can't do something, or just wait and hope that somehow someone else will take care of it, we stay the victim. But it's not until you get to a place in your life where you're so sick of where you're at that you go, wait, nobody cares. Nobody cares if I'm fat, broke, unhappy in my marriage, miserable at my job. Nobody cares about any of that unless I care enough to do something about it first. That's the turning point in all these things, is that you realize that it's all on you.
Yeah. No, and that's absolutely right. I mean, it made me laugh to myself, because any one of us that has ever managed people or is a parent or a leader in almost any environment in which people are looking to us for guidance, right? Has those two notorious people, whether it be our children, our nieces, our nephews, our employees, or whatever, that I don't know who, and it wasn't me. That's my two most notorious people, right? Is I don't know
Yeah.
who, and it wasn't me. And I'm like, if I can just get a hold of those two people, I get to fix everything, right? I get to fix everything. But
Well, it's pervasive, though. If you look at our government, you can do whatever you want to do, say whatever you want to say, and go, well, I was confused, or I didn't understand that, or this guy said that. We've created this world, especially in social media. I can go onto your page and say, you're an idiot and I hate you, and nothing ever happens to me. We
right,
have made this kind of freedom to be ridiculous. And so people aren't even aware of the power that they could have if they just owned it. They just feel like they're trapped. And they're not.
hmm
They're just not.
I love that. I love that concept, Robert, of how we can get our freedom and can get our joy and our power from the accountability piece. I talk about it in similar terms when I say, I will never allow somebody to dictate my response. I talk a lot about how we should never allow our emotions to dictate our actions. But one of the things that I hear my children say is, "You made me so mad." Well, no, I didn't make you mad.
Yeah, yeah,
I did not make you mad. You chose to
right.
be mad based on something that I did that was out of your control.
Yeah,
But this whole thing about evading accountability, that's kind of what when I hear you talking, and if we are trying to evade accountability, we will never truly learn from our mistakes, right? We
what mistake? You didn't make a mistake. It wasn't your fault.
right,
That's the whole
right,
point. Is if
exactly.
we've gone long enough where no one takes ownership. The very starting point for accountability is that you recognize that your actions have consequences.
hmm hmm
And we have lost that. If I don't save from my retirement, someone in the government will pay for me to have medical care and a place to live. If I don't treat people right, someone else will come on and take care of them. If I don't take care of my kids, their teacher will do it. We've just created this world where nobody has to own the stuff anymore. And it's just common. It's not a unique thing. Social Security, government, all the things, even with well-intentioned people, someone will pick up and run your problems for you. So there's no reason to have to own anything. And you didn't make any mistakes. You're just rolling along with everybody else.
Right. And then to the point of freedom and joy, right? I mean, if we want to talk about freedom and joy, there is no freedom and joy in being completely taken care of by an outside entity, somebody that can take away everything that would,
Right.
if they can give it, they can take it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that to me, if I'm not able to, if I'm not able sustain myself without some higher entity taking care of my every whim and need, then I don't have true freedom. And if I don't have true freedom, and I'm only speaking for myself here, Robert, if I don't have true freedom, I cannot have joy. I cannot experience joy. So okay. So let's talk about the book then. Obviously, the book is called "Nobody Cares Until You Do." And I'm certain you and I could talk about how the accountability piece is integral to our own freedom, our own power, our own joy for a very long time. But in the book, tell me about what it is. How do you explain to somebody? I mean, we can give plenty of examples of what non-accountability is, or evading accountability is, or that. But how do you teach somebody who sees themselves as a victor to become, or a victim to become a victor?
Yeah.
Because it really comes down to that. How do we
Yeah.
get rid of the victim mentality and become a victor in our own story?
So the simplest definition of accountability is you own it. That's the easiest way to look at it. There's something that's going on and you immediately say, okay, I own this. This is my thing. So what am I going to do about it? And we talk about in the book, the four things that most people do is blame, excuse, say they can't, or wait and hope it gets better. And it never gets any better, and it gets worse, and you have more disappointment and frustration in your life. And what we challenge people to do at the beginning of the book is to take a satisfaction assessment. There's these two separate wheels with little pie charts in them. And we just ask you to score honestly, how satisfied are you in your life in these areas? If it's a business, you score your sales team, your marketing, your finances, all that stuff. If it's your personal life, you score your marriage, your health, your faith, all these things. And the reason you want to do that is satisfaction creates energy, and we need more energy to survive life. And so if you're not satisfied, you're just miserable and exhausted. So the first thing we do is just ask you to be honest and say, where are you satisfied and where are you in that scale? Then once you realize you're not satisfied with something, then if you run through all those excuses, blames, say I can't, and wait and hope, then you'll realize I'm playing the victim. And you can look at each area. I'm not satisfied with my marriage. Why? Well, she's horrible. Really? Okay. So was she horrible when you married her? No. Why is she horrible? Well, she's been married to you for 10 years. No wonder she's horrible.
Right, right.
And you start to look at the things that we're not satisfied with. I'm not satisfied with my money. Why? I don't make enough money. Well, when you took the job, was it enough money to take the job? Yeah. Well, how come all of a sudden you're not making enough money? Well, things are expensive. Okay, so what do we do when things are expensive? So we're practicing this awareness by starting off and just being aware of where you're not satisfied. And if in each of those areas you can complain or make an excuse or say you can't, then you're realizing you're playing a victim. And take one of those areas and start practicing it and say, okay, I'm not happy with my weight. So what am I going to do about it? Well, I can't. I'm just older. I'm 61 years old. No matter what I eat, I gain weight. It's a fact. And so I have to think, okay, well, so maybe I need to eat less. Maybe I need to just stop the snacking. But I own that. That's my choice. And so I think as you practice the awareness, comparing your satisfaction to where you want to be and the reasons why you're not, you'll start to see the pattern of where we play a victim.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's absolutely right. I think a lot of people, when you talk about just owning it, I don't think enough people give enough credit to the satisfaction that comes along with just realization and acceptance of, okay, this isn't out of my control.
Yeah. Yeah.
This once you get to that point, and this isn't even taking the steps to fix it. This is just actually just building that awareness and the satisfaction you get from saying, okay, this is what's wrong in my life, or this is what's wrong with this part of my life, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now that I've actually assessed that part and I've figured out what this is, then just owning the part that you contributed to make that happen. I mean, that is a huge first step in what may be a very long journey to fix it.
Oh, sure. But at least it's your journey. Yeah. And I'm not saying that there aren't many, many times where people have been screwed over by something, someone, something, somehow, that they've been a victim. When I was a kid, I watched my father beat us kids and my mom in front of me for years. Mm. And I grew up in a pretty poor family. And then I grew up, got on my own, got married, and I got divorced. My wife left and took my 2-year-old kid and split on one day. I went through bankruptcy. I lost everything. Mm. So I've had things that I was victimized in the process, but I'm not a victim. Your life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you respond to it.
That's right.
And if you're screwed over by something, I'm sorry. And that's sad. We live in a broken, fallen world with evil people who do bad things. But you don't have to add to it the role of a victim. You've already been victimized. Don't stay a victim. Find out what you can do and fix it. There is always a solution. And it's very hard, and it's going to be an uphill battle, and it might suck. But it sucks to be a victim. That's and right. I'd rather have a hard journey going towards freedom and peace. And this is the story we tell about in our book. My beautiful wife and I owed $90,000 in debt, not counting the house or the cars. And in 2019, we were miserable, fighting with each other, frustrated, angry at God. It was a really tough time. And we realized the problem is us. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Nobody is going to fix our problems except us. And so we decided to sell our house and start over. We sold our home, took the equity out of it, paid off all the debt, and started over. We're in this house now where we live now, and we
Mm-hmm.
rent, and we're rebuilding our lives. But we took ownership and we made a really hard decision. And it was a bummer. I liked my old home with a movie theater upstairs and beautiful furniture and lots of space. It's more than twice the size of this house and all that good stuff. But I was miserable.
Yeah.
And so when you decide that you're going to own it, you get the power to change it. And that is encouraging.
Well, that's right. I've taken a lot of flack, Robert, for things that I've said in public about when I've said basically what you said there, right? Is life is 10% about what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it, and the idea that becoming a victim is not always. Becoming a victim or being victimized is quite often outside of our control, but remaining a victim, however, is often certainly within our control. And
Right.
I am a person, and from my personal life experience and the things that I've experienced, you talk about your past, and I talk a lot about my past on this podcast and the things that have happened to me over the course of my life. And I could have easily stayed in that miserable and ugly mindset that I stayed in. But when I think about how, and for me, it took a lot of books, right? It took a lot of books and listening to a lot of things, a lot of great podcasts, but choosing to remain miserable is a choice.
Yes,
So I talk a lot about choices, right? And one of the things that you said earlier that it made me think of something that I thought about this morning. I don't know why it popped into my mind, but a lot of people will see those memes, right? And they'll see those memes of somebody standing on a street corner with a big cardboard sign, and I'm sure we've all seen them at some point or another. And some of them have something really dumb on there. Some of them have something very profound, But my one thing that popped into my mind this morning, Robert, was stop removing consequences from bad choices and poor decisions, right? And oftentimes it is those consequences, right? I mean, if we think about, you and your beautiful wife get into $90,000 worth of debt. And as a result of that debt, one of the things that happens to so many couples, some very happy couples, they find themselves in this ugly spot with debt, and especially in the economy that we have today, and with things being far more expensive now than they were a couple years ago, and we're not making any more money, but we're spending a hell of a lot more, and it leads to these ugly fights with the people that we love, but the consequence of our poor choices, overspending what we've got coming in, is the stress that comes along with that, and the stress that then results in these fights with our spouse, and then now. But if somebody's there to bail us out, and now there is no consequences for our poor choices, what do we do now, Robert? We walk into our next situation after we've been bailed out, and now we end up in $180,000 worth of debt instead of $90,000 in debt. Right. And then what if somebody's not there to bail us out now?
Right.
I just think that the
I would say
accountability
flexibility is building like a muscle. And let me interrupt you for a second.
Yeah.
I think accountability is like building a muscle. We're supposed to teach this to our kids when they're young, right?
Yeah.
And we want them to do the right thing. We want them to own it, and we give them consequences. You didn't get good grades. We're not going to Disneyland. You didn't do your homework. You're not watching TV. We're trying to teach them that their actions have consequences. And then somehow, at some point, that gets lost. And yet we worked so hard to teach our kids to own it when they're young. And then it just somehow the world allows it to not happen. And if you don't have enough money, you just add up your credit card debt and get bigger and bigger. And then when it doesn't work out, you file bankruptcy. And then that doesn't work out, then you can do this. I mean, we're just kicking the can down the road. But I think we've got to slowly start building the muscle of accountability. Mm-hmm. And it starts with a small thing, just being honest with yourself. And one of the ways to help yourself be honest is to tell someone else what's true. We don't like to admit that we have problems, so we keep it to ourselves, and it never gets better. But if I'm like, hey, Wilk, I got some bad decisions in my past and I'm choking on debt. I know you're not going to fix it for me, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop spending money and
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you my checkbook and my bills every month. So you can see. Now, you're not going to not spend money for me, but I have to stand in front of you like a fool and say, yes, I bought a new car. What?
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to change your life, invite people into your world who will love and care for you. God has a plan for your life. He wants to do something fantastic with you. But if you hinder him from giving you the life that he wants to give you by the bad choices you make and continue to make, he doesn't have the opportunity to do it. Invite people in who will walk the journey with you, not fix it, but be there a little bit of peer pressure so that you don't just continue down the road and you get a chance to start building those accountability muscles.
Right. Yeah, and I can't remember if it was another guest of mine or something that I came up with. I don't think I came up with this, but they called it an accountability buddy, right? It's one of these people. They can't fix it for you, but at least they can listen to you when you are holding yourself to account for your poor decisions.
Yeah, just don't put
Because
too much on that accountability buddy. It's not their job to fix your problem or babysit you. Sometimes we say, I got an accountability buddy. He's going to call me. And it gives you a false sense of security, like they're going to be checking in on you. They don't do it for you. They're there to listen and support you if you're going to be honest and if you'll be real.
yeah, and I would even contend that it's not their job to call you. You should have to call. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing is and it goes right back to the very first thing that we talked about here. Nobody can hold you accountable except for you. It's like, well, maybe he won't call or maybe she won't call, and then I won't have to step up to the podium and say what I've done this week because I did have that extra egg roll or I did, spend that extra $100 that I had or I whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, it's not their job to call you. You call them and say, I messed up, But here's the thing: is again, I like I said, I said that phrase so many times. Every mistake is an opportunity for learning. But then the converse to that is, once a mistake is made once, doing it again and again and again. Now that's a choice, right?
Yeah.
And those choices are where things go from being a mistake to that accountability piece. Once our choices, it's our poor choices and our bad decisions that we need to hold ourselves accountable for. And now we talked a little bit in the pre-show, Robert, and I'm going to I'm going to change gears quite drastically here because one of the things that I've been involved in heavily for the past few years is the pandemic response, the divide that we find now between people and there's a large spectrum. It's not just a two-sided issue, and there's a lot of different opinions on different things, but I've been involved in a project called the Truth and Trust Project with an organization called Braver Angels. It's an incredible organization, and over the course of the past few years, I've had the opportunity to make friends with some of the most high profile figures on either end of the spectrum when it comes to the COVID divide. The public health response. I'm friends with Dr. Francis Collins, former head of the National Institutes of Health, and the other side, which would be considered maybe the dissident side or the side that is very anti-public health response or pandemic response. I'm very good friends with Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. By the time this comes out, I'm sure I'll have been out to Stanford, where I'm going to be doing a thing with a number of health professionals out there at Stanford University. One of the things that we've talked about in this Truth and Trust project, and with so many people on this thing, is can there be accountability without retribution? And you being a Christian and me being a Christian, one of the things that I've talked about so many times in this thing is a pound of flesh strategy will not get the job done. But we need to find a way to rebuild trust between the people and the public health establishment that we have tasked with keeping us safe. safe to a certain degree. I don't believe in the safety uber alles thing that some people do. I think a lot of it really comes back down to our personal choices. How do we hold our officials accountable when they quite often will not admit to their own mistakes, especially our politicians, because we know now that in our current political atmosphere, accountability is out the window in most cases when it comes to our politicians.
Yeah, that's a tough place. Yeah, I think we have the best society in the world,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we have the best run government in the world. That being said, it's full of people who are broken and selfish, and make mistakes and lack character and integrity in some areas, and certainly in some situations. The only way that we can hold anyone accountable, if we're going to use that phrase, is by our vote. Because I could vote for someone and they get in office and do whatever they want to do, and I have nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
We could try and impeach everyone who ever gets a place in office, and we'd spend all our time running around trying to catch up with someone as they behave poorly. But there's the power of vote, which it saddens me how few people vote. It's just mind-boggling. The other part of that thing that we can do to hold people accountable, if we're going to use that phrase, which I don't think you can hold anyone accountable, is to pray for them. There is huge power in prayer. And if you look through the stories of the Bible, God appointed really pagan, evil people to take over the Israelites and take them captive. And he used them as a pawn for his purpose. Even Nebuchadnezzar, who was this king of Babylon, God has him go crazy and live out like a wild animal for years because of his arrogance, proving and showing that God was using him for his purposes as he was trying to teach his people about obedience. Our nation does not have to follow God if they don't want to. That's a free choice. But God is still God, and God will do what God's going to do in his plan. So if you truly want to help the people who are in charge to make good decisions, pray for them, care about them, really diligently pray for them, because God is still in control. That doesn't mean to say that we don't do anything about it. Get out and vote every single time. Encourage people to vote. Say why you are voting for someone so they can learn. But at the end of the day, so much of our voting is based on sound bites that aren't true, or sound bites that don't last, or people who say one thing, but when they get in the office, in order to get anything done, they feel like they got to give in a little bit, and then we take on the whole journey. So we're never going to hold them accountable. The only place to influence is vote and pray.
Mm-hmm. Vote and pray, and I think that's an absolutely beautiful thing, and yeah, I just hope people pray before they vote. But
Reform, that's for sure.
Yeah. The thing about this whole thing that has gotten so ugly for me, and I do agree with you, is if we can't hold them accountable and until they hold themselves accountable. And
Right.
and the reality is let's go back to that vulnerability thing real quick. And I know we're getting close to the end of our time here, Robert, but what we've done as a society, which really bothers me, and what I've seen more than my share of over the past couple of years, is when people in power do show a certain degree of vulnerability and stand up and say, this is where I went wrong. I went left instead of going right, and I don't mean politically. I mean, I made a poor decision here, and this is what I would have done differently had I had that choice to make again. People look too often today, and I don't want to generalize it, but too often today we see where people take that as a point of weakness, and then they attack that person instead of celebrating them for showing that vulnerability. And if we can only get back to a point where vulnerability and watching somebody hold themselves accountable for their own errors is celebrated the way that so much of the ugliness we see today is, I think we'd be in a much better spot.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to be who you want to be. If someone in politics made a bad decision and it's their character to go and own up to it and they get reamed for it, so be it. But that's what you volunteered for when you stepped into office. You put yourself in this weird place of vulnerability to have anybody and everybody criticize you and give you hell for the job you're doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
a no-win proposition. Who the heck would be a crazy enough person to go into political office
Right.
these days? I mean, it's just so bad. But if God is leading them to a place to do that, and their character requires them to be honest and be forthright, good.
Mm-hmm.
God will step in and control the circumstances. Our society is so fickle. We can light you up and hate you one day and then praise you the next. I mean, it's just so bizarre how it goes. But don't lose who you are in the journey of trying to avoid conflict. That's not what Christ did. He came and he spoke truth and love, and a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people hated him for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so those people who are going to go into office and do what they're going to do, half the people are going to hate him, half the people are going to love him. I don't even know if it's half anymore.
Yeah.
And a lot of people aren't going to even pay attention, right?
Yeah.
You still got to be who you are.
Yeah, yeah. There's obviously, in my way of thinking, there's just way too much hate involved in especially our politics today, and there's way too many people capitalizing on hate, and I think, yeah, I definitely think we'd be in a much better place if we celebrated, people's vulnerable nature and forgiving those who have done us wrong in certain circumstances. And
yeah, and going back to what you said earlier, that you should never make decisions on your emotion, I would like to point out that there's another version of that. You should make decisions based on your emotions. Decisions like forgiving and caring for people when they don't deserve it. Logically, they do not deserve it. But emotionally, you know how much you suck. And
yeah,
if you look at how much God has forgiven you, then you need to turn around and give that same grace and mercy to the people who wronged you. So we do need to make decisions based on emotions, when there are emotions that are healing and giving restoration and grace and mercy. And the reason that so many people are so angry right now is there's a lot of hurt people out there. We are not going to convert them over to a logical place of kindness and unity by yelling at them or trying to force them to think a certain way. And it doesn't make sense. One party can say ridiculous, heinous things, and we're just supposed to, okay. And if we speak up, then we're the bad guys. It's not fair, but that's the world we live in. And so how do you deal with people when it's not fair? You give grace.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You show kindness and mercy.
Grace,
And
forgiveness,
that's kind of what
kindness,
we
and
have to
mercy.
do. Yeah.
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 And just for a point of clarification, Robert, I'm not anti-emotion based decision making. What I am is anti allowing our emotions to dictate our actions. So I don't know if I wasn't clear about that before. And some people might say it's a distinction without a difference. I do see I see a clear difference in that when, the emotions dictating actions and emotion based decision making for me is
In a bad way. In a bad way. We wanted to dictate our actions in a good way, where my emotions lead me to show grace and mercy to you, even though I've been wronged by you. The emotion of how much I'm loved by God and how much He's forgiven me makes me want to do the same to you.
Yep. Yeah, that reciprocal forgiveness, that reciprocal mercy. I agree with you 100%. So, Robert, tell the DTH listeners, where can they find out more about you? Where can they find your book, Nobody Cares Until You Do? And some parting words for the DTH listeners.
Yeah, the book is found at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and Target and all that stuff. You can buy it online, or you can go to nobodycaresbook.com and you can order books from us there. We'll send you an autographed copy with a bookmark and a sticker and all that good stuff. More importantly, we want you to come join our community. I want to hear your story as you go through this process of building accountability in life. I want you to email me and tell me how it's going and ask questions and let me support you. For your podcast today, I created a special domain called nobodycarespod.com. And if they put in the code word WILK, W-I-L-K, I will mail them a copy of my book for free. For the first 2 people who send me the code word WILK at that website, fill out their contact information and address with the code word WILK, and I will mail you a copy of the book. If you want to read it, if you want to go on this journey of accountability with us, I would be glad to send you a copy of my book.
Well, that is incredible. Very gracious of you, Robert Hunt. It's been a great conversation. I love the topic of accountability, and power, freedom, joy. These are all words in my wheelhouse, and I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for what you're doing, brother. Keep up the good work.
Friends, if there's anything in this episode that provided exceptional value to you, please make sure to hit that share button. Share it with your friends, share it far and wide. And of course, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe right from our website so you can get the D-Rate the Hate podcast sent to your email inbox every week. So this is Wilk wrapping up for the week saying get out there, be kind to one another, be grateful for everything that you've got, and remember it's up to you to make each and every day the day that you want it to be. If there is something that you would like to share with me, you can catch me on most social media platforms, or you can email me directly, wilk@wilksworld.com. With that, my friends, I am going to back on out of here, and we will catch you next week. Take care.